Welcome back to another weekly update where this week we are going to respond to a question that surfaced recently about ensuring research-based practices exist within our continuum of support, specifically Tier 1.
Are you a leader who is navigating the nuances of leading collaborative response in your school or district? Are you unsure of what collaborative response is? Are you looking to understand the critical role leadership plays when establishing and refining a collaborative response approach?
Collaborative response began as a grassroots approach to focus on the needs of students through a framework of collaboration. That approach has grown to a movement that is training leadership and education.
Through the Leading Collaborative Response podcast, Kurtis and I share our own experiences of leading collaborative response and lessons learned as we continue to learn and gain insight through the experiences of working alongside others. We also have the opportunity to engage in conversations with school and divisional leaders implementing the framework in their own organizations.
We know great leaders build great teams because that is what every child deserves. Subscribe to the Leading Collaborative Response podcast and join the thousands of schools seeing success for students through intentional and focused collaborative efforts. So when we think about the idea of developing a continuum of supports, one of the things we often hear in the development phase is, I'm not really satisfied with where we're at after the first draft. We brought together all of these different ideas and, oh boy, there's some practices that are not necessarily grounded in research or best practice. What do we do next? So before we go and respond to that, why don't you describe the process we typically walk through when a school is engaging in the development of a continuum of supports? And in fact, why don't we back up even one further of why should a school engage in the development of a continuum of supports?
Yeah, so I'm kind of chuckling at that description of what that first round or first rendition of a continuum of supports looks like when you engage in that activity with your staff, because there are very few that look refined. It's a little bit messy, and we come up with a whole ton of different ideas to begin with, and that's okay. It's a good place to start.
So let's back up. Why should a school engage in a continuum of supports? What's its purpose as one of the foundational components of a collaborative response within a school?
This is all about our response. So basically, your continuum of supports is about being able to articulate how it is that we respond to the needs of students in particular focus areas. So schools will build continuums based on literacy or numeracy or wellness or relationships or executive functioning, so many different areas that you can build continuums on.
We essentially say, determine what's the priority you're trying to move the needle on within your school, and then we should be developing a continuum of supports that is, like you said, all about so what should we do when we're seeing struggles or when we are trying to impact success and growth in this priority area.
Which ties back then to your school improvement plan, but actually allows us to actualize our school improvement plan by going through this work. So when we initially develop the continuum of supports, we encourage schools to engage in a sticky note activity where we give everyone sticky notes. We identify the area, so let's say executive functioning, and in executive functioning, when a student struggles with executive functioning, and we might even break that down even further. What is it that we do? What is it that we do? What do we do? Yeah. And the whole point behind that is that we want every member of the staff team to be able to start to articulate what is it that you do in your classroom to meet the needs of students.
So we'll ensure that we include into the notes a set of slides that we've utilized with many, many schools on that initial development phase of a continuum. We often say that the starting development of a continuum of supports is about creating an anchored document, which can become valuable in time, but it's also a mechanism to open the conversation about practice.
Yeah.
What do we do? And just normalize that within our school. So we get all of these sticky notes. We've tiered them. And again, we'll include a link that talks about, or that shows an overview of the 4 tiers that we think are critical, and they align with our layers of support. Again, everything's connected and aligned when we think about it within collaborative response. But we've got this mass of stickies. We go and put it into a document, and we get the response back of, boy, there's not really anything that is incredibly innovative or shocking that's within this.
Or we have gaps.
Yeah.
Like there's missing. We don't have anything in this one particular area.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we don't stop there, of course. And so the next step is...
We'll be right back to continue this episode.
I know for anyone coordinating services and supports for students, it can be a struggle to keep track of and monitor what is happening for students across the school. What if there was an easy way to visually organize students while continuously updating what is in place for their success and ongoing growth? By establishing visual boards with easy access to a comprehensive student profile, organization and tracking concerns become a thing of the past. Start your free trial now to experience the power of wecollab.
And now back to our conversation.
So the next step is to be able to refine your continuum of support. So we can do that in a number of ways, but really thinking about how do we ensure that the practices that we have on our continuum are research-based, or in terms of effectiveness, we can rate those strategies. We can, the very first round before we even put it on a visual is being able to group some of those strategies into bigger categories.
Okay, so I know that you've recently released 2 different supporting collaborative response online workshops. One on refining and utilizing your continuum, and another on refining tier 1, because what we want to be able to do is over time narrow tier 1 down into the practices that we will see in place for all students across all classrooms, which brings us to where the topic for today of how do we ensure that what gets narrowed down, and we've seen some schools call it their big 8 or the non-negotiables that they establish, and we usually say somewhere between 5 to 10 maybe might be a sweet spot to aim for. But how do we ensure that if we've said these are 6 practices that we will see school-wide, that they are research-based? They're not just things that feel good, that we all agree that'd be nice to have, but that there's actually some basis of research that has been done that says this does have significant impact on the success of students.
So I think about this, especially when we get to the point of refining our tier 1. I think about this in terms of expanding and then refining. So that breathing in, breathing out, that back and forth, because we expand by gathering as many ideas as we can, but then we refine them and start to move to topic areas. But when we talk about coming down to those 6 to 8 big rocks, I would call them big rocks, in your tier 1, then you want to be able to look at, first you're going to come from your continuum that you developed first, create those 6 to 8, put those back out to your teachers again. And this is another back and forth, refine, share, so that there's constant involvement of the staff team. But when we get to that place where we feel pretty good about those 6 to 8 practices, we need to be able to go and research what does the research say about those 6 to 8 practices.
So let me share a couple things that I've seen or have led with different schools or within my own experience as being a school leader, and then add on others that you've seen. So the first one is when I was working with a school district where we were fined down to 5 domains of quality pedagogy at Tier 1 that were system-wide. We then had a working group that went and dove in to a number of different research articles related to the topic that we were focusing on, which again was quality pedagogy. Yeah. And we started to link research so that the statements that were being put in place, we could actually tie some research. We did the exact same thing then when we defined 3 domains of well-being. In each of those domains, we had 4 professional focus areas, and then we started to link research of why this is a focus area that we feel is critically important. So the statements themselves even had citations that went to it. The other one that we did within my own school when we had developed our literacy continuum is I had a previous colleague at a university who had significant expertise and background in literacy, and we sent it off to her and said, what do you think? What are we missing? And she came back and reinforced some pieces, but then said, I think here's one thing that you should be considering, that we brought back to our staff, and our staff could go, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Many of us already have that in place. So that was a nice confirmation, but then just put a little bit of credence to these are actually high yield universal practices that it's not just us saying this would be nice for our students.
And beyond that is really going back again to that, refining and then expanding and refining. Well, we're refining by saying those 6 to 8 practices, but we can expand on that, especially in your electronic documents, by saying for when I say that in a continuum of building relationships, I say that one of our core practices is...
We'll be right back to continue this episode. Leaders, are you looking for the most effective ways to empower your staff and elevate student support? Jigsaw Learning invites you to our free 2025 Collaborative Response Virtual Summit on October 24th. Join us online to learn directly from school and district leaders who are transforming their organizations with collaborative response. Discover how this robust framework can deepen your multi-tiered approach, build collective staff capacity, and ensure success for all learners. You'll gain practical resources, connect with educational leaders globally, and unlock numerous surprises, all at no cost. Mark your calendar for October 24th, 2025. Registration opens September 1st. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your leadership and build a thriving school culture. Visit jigsawlearning.ca for details and get ready to empower your team. And now back to our conversation.
One of our core practices is to create a welcoming and caring environment.
Right.
Well, we narrow that down to say that's our core practice, but we want to be able to be explicit about what that looks like. So, creating a link to a document that then defines it, provides examples, provides the research behind it.
And I was just going to say that's a great place to then start linking in the research if people wanted to dive
So we
deeper.
Narrow, but actually at the same time, we clearly define what each of those 8 core practices are about.
And I really like the idea of building out a linked literature base potentially in relation to this. The other thing that when I had the opportunity to work with 4 schools that were developing a shared numeracy continuum, we reached out to numeracy consultants within that division. And again, it didn't start there where we said, consultants, we are engaging. Can you please tell us what we should put in? Again, it was the expanding, contracting of let's leverage teachers' expertise so that it's owned, it's co-created. But then when we get to a refinement stage, we shared it with those individuals. And again, they not only could either verify things that were on or identify gaps, but then could provide further resources related to each one because they had incredible expertise in those particular areas.
Well, and I've seen lots of schools in that expansion piece link in a whole bunch of resources that they can go to further describe or to support that particular strategy.
So I think a key message that we're sharing out is this is not a one-time activity where it's, okay, we know we have to develop a continuum. We did that sticky note activity, as you referenced. Check. We've now got this, and it's in a shared drive somewhere. Yeah. Your continuum's constantly being refined and updated, and as we've shared today, trying to link research to the things that are on, and then in time peeling off practices that may not be as high yield or high impact for us, but especially when we're looking at tier 1, that is not accomplished in a short period of time or in a single iteration. The schools where we've seen this done very, very well, they're now in their 7th iteration of their continuum. And again, this doesn't mean every staff meeting you have to dedicate time, or I need 4 PD days during the year. You need some concentrated time for that first, but in that refinement, this could be done by a smaller group. A smaller group or individuals with expertise who have some time to be able to refine that.
And matter of fact, there's some revisions that you want to do with a small group because it will be too cumbersome to try to do it with the whole staff. But I would caution in saying that small group now is going to reinvent that continuum and then it's done. It's about being able to give it back.
And then give it back,
and constantly get that feedback. This is one of the core important pieces when we think about our continuum of supports is that ownership piece for everyone in the building.
To see their practice reflected in it.
Everyone wants to be reflected in that continuum because we are saying that this is what we do to support the students in our school. So every person needs to find a place in that continuum.
Yeah, and the idea is that by that constant refining, or as you've described it, the expanding, contracting, is just, again, creating situations, opportunities, ways to normalize conversations about practice over and over and over again within our building.
Having it readily accessible, that's the key piece too, is why we build on these additional documents that further describe other resources and provide the foundation for those core practices, because we want this clearly described and readily available for every staff member.
So when you say clearly described, and this is where we'll end off here today, we've had the opportunity to see some schools now where they have gone through that multiple iterations, have really developed a sound set of tier 1 practices that are backed by research, who then start posting it, who then start having the posters on the wall. Or I can think of one school where they had a bulletin board dedicated with QR codes that if you scan the QR code, it would have somebody explaining why this was a tier 1 practice. I thought that was incredibly impactful when you can even make that in a public space of these are big rocks that are foundational
that
to
we'll
our
see
practice.
in every classroom.
That we'll see in every classroom.
And based on that, we've seen a number of schools then take the next step into their classroom walkthroughs. That if we've said that these 6 to 8 are our core, they're our big rocks, then we are going to see those as we come through the classroom in those supervision
So we
places.
do have a document that was refined from a school that was doing just that, where lists the tier one, the tier one, and then saying today this is what we're looking for when coming into a particular classroom. So we have a number of resources that we will share, but as always, we'd love to see some examples of what does tier one look like within your building. How have you clarified and articulated that within the overall organization? And please reach out if there's further resources that we can share, or if you just want to talk through what might be a next step for you as well. So as always, we wish you all the best. Thank you for the amazing work that you are doing for your student, staff, and educational communities. And until next time, take good care.
See you soon.
For more on collaborative response, visit jigsawlearning.ca or join the JL Insider to receive access to newly added resources and content. Make sure to follow us on social media. Subscribe to the podcast and the Jigsaw Learning YouTube channel to access past and upcoming episodes. Join us again to continue to build your own capacity and leading collaborative response in your context.